Let's start by creating a new folder on my desktop. So I'm going to call this as React.js examples. And inside that, I'm going to have a new folder called ES6 examples. I want to open Visual Studio Code. And then using this open folder button here, or from the welcome screen, there's an open folder option. I would like to select my desktop, React.js examples. Under ES6 examples, I'm going to create a new file called ex01.js, which is just going to be a JavaScript file. We will run this via Node.js because we want to understand the features of ECMAScript. The first one that we want to learn about is the new keyword called let and then const. For this, I'll just create a variable called num1 and assign a value of 1, and then write a function called test. I'll say num1 plus plus. And then when I come out of this function, I'm going to just print the value of num1. So I'm going to type console log. I say num1 is, and then I say num1. I've not called the function yet, so the num1's value is 1. And then you can see it's going to just print this value as 1. But if I call this function called test, the function test is trying to increment the value of num1. And the num1 is not created inside this function, so it was been assigned outside, because of which it will simply increment the previous value, which is 1, and it becomes 2. If I copy this line and then paste it here, you'll see that it prints the value of 2. Let me go to the command prompt and then type in cd desktop and then React.js examples followed by ES6 examples. So I have this one file called ex01.js. To execute this using Node, you can type node ex01 or ex01.js and then press enter. And it says num1 is 1, num1 is 2. But if I come down here and then declare a variable called var num1, and then of course I would like to assign some value 1, save this and run this once more, you'll see this time you're going to get a different output. In both the cases I'm getting num1 is 1, mainly because the function test, when it is called, it increments the local copy and not the one which is declared outside of the function. So var makes the variable local to that particular function. That's the primary goal of that. Let's take another example. So I'm going to create a file called ex02.js and write a function called test. I'll use a for loop here. So for var I equals to 1, I less than or equals to 5, I plus plus, and then I'll type here inside the for loop I is, and then I'll type here the value of I. Of course, it's just going to print that value of I is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To verify the same, first let's call the function called test, save it, go back to the command prompt, and then I'll type here node ex02, press enter, and you can see inside the for loop I is so on. Now if I go to the end of the for loop and press enter, and then I type here console log, I'll say outside of the for loop I is, and then I'll just type here I, save this, go back to the command prompt, rerun this once more. You'll see it says outside of the for loop the value of I is 6. So even though it was declared as if it is part of the for loop, the variable became a local variable of this function and not the block level variable. Now in ES6 they introduced the keyword called let to overcome this issue, so that the variable I loses its scope when you come out of this. So instead of var, if I type here let and save it and go back to the command prompt, rerun this once more, you can see that it prints the value within the loop, but when I try to print it outside of the for loop, it says that the value of I is undefined, so you can't really print that. So let makes it as a block level variable, so that the variable gets created when the block begins and the variable I is released from the memory when the block is finished. Another keyword was introduced along with let called as const. It's very trivial, so we don't have to really create another example for the same. Const allows us to declare a variable such as name, but you have to assign a value to that, something like this. But later, if you try to change the value, it's going to give an error. For example, let's first print the value of name. I'll say name is, and then I type name. So it's going to print the value, so without any problem. Name is Vinod. But if I say name equals to name dot to uppercase, now you can see that this is going to cause a problem when we run this. It says here assignment to a constant variable is not allowed in line number 14, where I'm trying to reassign the value. So const basically means that the value for a variable can be assigned only once, and it has to be assigned at the time of declaration itself. So according to the ES6 standards, a better practice is prefer to use const over let, but in case if the value of a variable changes, then prefer to use let over var.